knife is good. It's more easy to fix. I got knifed 3 times. When you're young, everybody sticks knife in you.
Hello to all the classic people that are returning. I'm glad you're back. I want to welcome any new visitors. As a technical note, references and citations are listed for each show on the site at classicmovierev.com. Today on the Classic Movie Reviews podcast, we are taking on Ride the Pink Horse, 1947. This movie is an excellent film noir with a subgenre of non-urban noir. The film was recommended by Alan K. Rohde for the noir photography class I took last year. The film is set in a sleepy border town. The film uses interiors and exteriors from Santa Fe, New Mexico, when it was indeed a small town. However, it is nowhere near the border. Robert Montgomery produced, directed, and starred in this movie. If you count his uncredited directing on They Were Expendable 1945, when he took over for John Ford, this was his third directing effort, and it followed the point of view Lady in the Lake 1946. This film is rated 7.3 on imdb.com, and it deserves to be a lot higher. It fares much better on RottenTomatoes.com with 100% on the tomato meter and 86% audience approval. On October 9, 1947, New York Times film critic Bosley Crothers gave it a positive review stating partially, quote, "Nobody writing for movies likes more than the ironic Ben Heach to muse on the dizzy and eccentric rotations of the merry-go-round of life. And that is what he is doing in a hard-boiled and often violent way in the script which he and Charles Lederer wrote for Ride the Pink Horse. That is likewise what Robert Montgomery has intriguingly captured on the screen in this taunt and macabre melodrama, which came to the Winter Gardens yesterday. Nothing is proved, particularly, in this grimly humored tale of an amateur blackmailer's adventures in a noisy New Mexico resort town. Nothing, that is, unless you figure that an ultimate conclusion that life is a fateful and fickle experience to someone to be proved." Unquote. He later continued, quote, "But Mr. Montgomery, as director and star of this story, has contrived to make it look shockingly literal and keep it moving at an unrelenting pace. And he has also managed to lace it with the grisly action and rugged sentiment without deceit. Indeed, he has artfully fashioned a fascinating film within the genre. He has done something else exceptionally. He has given the other actors a real chance. Aside from his own performance as the blackmailer, which is vibrantly tough, he has given the heart of the story to Wanda Hendrix, a newcomer who is fine. As a little Mexican moonchild who shadows the bruiser through the night and finally is able to assist him in his last violent race with fate and death, Miss Hendrix is remarkably sensitive and reflective of sad and mystic moods. And Thomas Gomez, as a carousel proprietor, is surprisingly gay and picturesque." Unquote. I couldn't help but notice that Mr. Crowther used the term moonchild to describe Wanda Hendrix's portrayal of Pila. I thought moonchild was a modern term. UrbanDictionary.com describes a moonchild as, quote, "a unique and curious soul who is often in a daze. His or her mind is always out of this world. They live in their fantasies and refuse to come back to a harsh reality." Unquote. That fits perfectly. Lexico.com dates that term back to 1920. Who knew? This movie is based on the 1946 Dorothy B. Hughes novel of the same name. This movie is kind of dark, but it's nothing compared to the darkness of the pit that the characters in the book crawled into. I was so shocked by the ending of the book that I had to listen to it a few times so I could clearly understand the surprising left turn. Actors.
Right, and I'm a Shakespearean actor.
Thomas Gomez played Pancho, the friendly operator of Tio Vivo. Gomez was nominated for the Best Actor in a Supporting Role Oscar that he didn't win. He was the first Latino to be nominated for an Oscar. Gomez was first covered in the exceptional film Key Largo 1948. Fred Clark played Gangster Hugo. Clark was first covered in Sunset Boulevard 1950. He was the guy that wouldn't buy a script from Gillis. Robert Montgomery played the angry veteran Blackie Gagan. Montgomery was born in 1904 in New York State. Born to a wealthy father, all their money was lost during the Great Depression. Eventually, Montgomery went to New York to become a writer, but a friend encouraged him to try acting. He worked on stage, and his first film was So This Is College, 1929. He got the role in Private Lives, 1931, and began a good run. Montgomery ran the breadth of genres with films like The Big House, 1930, Hell Below, 1933, Hideout, 1934, Riptide, 1934, The Mysterious Mr. X, 1934, Night Must Fall, 1937, where he was nominated for the Best Actor Oscar, Yellow Jacket, 1938, an interesting movie about the search for the yellow fever cure, The Earl of Chicago, 1940, Here Comes Mr. Jordan, 1941, where he was again nominated for the Best Actor Oscar, Rage in Heaven, 1941, Unfinished Business, 1941, The John Wayne Military Odyssey, They Were Expendable, 1945, and Film Noir's Lady in the Lake, 1946, and Ride the Pink Horse, 1947. Montgomery was the president of the Screen Actors Guild from 1935 to 1938. During World War II, Montgomery joined the Navy and was in combat, receiving a Bronze Star for his action following D-Day. He took over directing for John Ford during the filming of They Were Expendable, 1945. He also went on to direct 5 other films: Film Noir's Lady in the Lake and Ride the Pink Horse, 1947, Once More My Darling, 1949, Eyewitness, 1950, and The Gallant Hours, 1960, with James Cagney as Admiral William F. Bull Halsey, Jr. Montgomery became the president of the Screen Actors Guild again from 1946 to 1947. Montgomery worked to drive the Chicago mob out of the film industry unions. He also later worked hand in hand with the Un-American House Un-American Activities Committee. To me, his most impressive accomplishment is being the father of Elizabeth Montgomery, who we all know is the best witch. Wanda Hendrix played the role of Pila, a Mexican/Indian local. She was born in Florida in 1928. Nobody's born in Florida. Hendrix was working in a local theater when she was spotted by an agent and signed to a Warner Brothers contract. The studio jumped right into more prominent roles like Confidential Agent 1945, Film Noir, Noir Apprentice, and Welcome Stranger 1947, a comedy. In 1947, she also starred in today's movie, the film noir Ride the Pink Horse, 1947. In this film, she was able to portray a shy, socially awkward Native American or Mexican American successfully. The next year, she was in Miss Tadlock's Millions, 1948, and My Own True Love, 1948. In 1949, Hendrix began dating the most decorated U.S. soldier of World War II, Audie Murphy. Wounded in the war, Murphy became an actor. And being a Texan, he made a lot of westerns. He also starred as himself in To Hell and Back, 1955. Although the couple starred in the Western Sierra, 1950, the marriage was not a good one. Undiagnosed at the time, Murphy had severe PTSD. His PTSD resulted in paranoia, heavy drinking, and shall we say, carousing. The couple separated and divorced in 1951. Following the divorce, roles began to slow for Hendrix. Some of her best films during this period include Captain Carey, USA, 1949, The Highwayman, 1951, Highway Dragnet, 1954, and My Outlaw Brother, 1951, where she worked with Robert Stack for the second time. In 1954, she married Robert Stack's millionaire brother. This marriage lasted until 1958. In the late 1950s and the early 1960s, she began to work on television and only had a few movies like Boy Who Caught a Crook, 1961, Johnny Cool, 1963, and Stage to Thunder Rock. Hendrix died at the very young age of 52 in 1981. Art Smith played FBI agent Bill Ritz. However, he appeared much too old for the part he played. Smith was born in Illinois in 1899. He was a member of the Group Theater and was in 32 Broadway shows. Smith's first full-length movie was Edge of Darkness, 1943, about Norwegians fighting Nazis. Some of his film noirs include Frame, 1947, Brute Force, 1947, Ride the Pink Horse, 1947, T-Men, 1947, Body and Soul, 1947, A Double Life, 1947, Caught, 1949, Quicksand, 1950, In a Lonely Place, 1950, The Killer That Stalked New York, 1950, and The Sound of Fury, 1950. He made many comedies, westerns, and romances. I will mention two of these. The Next Voice You Hear, ... 1950, where God speaks to the world over the course of a week, and The Hustler, 1961, as an old pool hall attendant. Smith was blacklisted as a communist in the 1950s. During this time, he worked some on television. Smith died in 1973. Andrea King played Marjorie, a true femme fatale. King was born in Paris in 1919. Her mother was an ambulance driver in World War I and danced with Isadora Duncan. When King was 2 months old, her and her mother returned to the U.S. King began acting professionally when she was 14. She had appeared in 3 Broadway plays before signing with Warner Brothers in 1944. King's first film was The Ramparts We Watched, 1940. Other roles include The Very Thought of You, 1944, Hollywood Cantina, 1944 as herself, Mr. Skeffington, 1944, God is My Co-Pilot, 1945, her first leading role in the war drama Hotel Berlin, 1945, The Beast with Five Fingers, 1946 with Peter Lorre, Buccaneer's Girl, 1950, It Must Be Terrible, my perennial favorite, Band of Angels, 1957 with Clark Gable, and Darby's Rangers, 1958. From 1959 onward, she worked extensively on television, with an occasional movie like Blackenstein, 1973, thrown in. Her last role was in 1994, and she died in 2003. Rita Conde played Carla, one of Pila's friends. Conde was born in 1914 in Cuba. With only 32 film and television credits, Conde is known for a few roles including El Ahijado de las Muertas, 1946, Ride the Pink Horse, 1947, The Brave Bull, 1951, and the movie where H.G. Wells chases Jack the Ripper across time in Time After Time, 1979. Herbert! She died in 1989. Story.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
A Greyhound bus rolls north along Highway 14 to the fictional town of San Pablo, showing the landscape. It stops at the town's central bus depot. Indians selling beads and blankets as Mexicans and Anglo-Americans move around. A man steps off the bus that seems entirely out of place. The man is Blackie Gagan, Robert Montgomery. He transfers a .45 automatic from his briefcase into his coat. He pulls a check from the briefcase and places it in a rental locker. Blackie buys some gum and uses the chewed gum to hide the key from the locker behind a large map mounted on the wall. He starts looking for the La Fonda Motel, a Santa Fe landmark which was built in 1920. Blackie hears carousel music and a man trying to drum up business in Spanish. He speaks to 3 young ladies of Spanish descent. 2 are very bold and one is shy to the point of strangeness. She is so skinny that she would have to run around in the shower to get wet. The shy one, Pila, Wanda Hendrix, says she will show him the way. She can't keep her eyes off Blackie, and he is pretty rude to her.
You talk English?
Yes.
Where's the La Fonda Hotel? What's the matter? Doesn't anybody know?
It's over there by the stores. See? Way over there.
No, not over there. What's the name of the street? What's the matter with you? Who are you looking at? You I'm talking to. Who are you looking at?
I show you the hotel.
She shows Blackie the location of the La Fonda, but before he can leave, she gives him a small doll for protection. Pila says it's not for sale, but is a gift. Blackie goes into the hotel and it's super busy. He doesn't know that the town is in the middle of fiesta. Blackie can't get a room, but checks his briefcase anyway. He uses hotel stationery to write a letter to Frank Hugo, Fred Clark, and IDs the room number as 315 when it's placed in Hugo's box. Blackie goes to the room and is met by Jonathan, Richard Gaines, who is Hugo's personal secretary. Jonathan tries to keep him out, but Blackie forces his way in to ensure that Hugo is not in the room. Jonathan tries to call the manager, and Blackie gut punches him. Shortly after, Marjorie, Andrea King, comes in. She asks if Blackie waylaid Jonathan. Marjorie says she is having dinner with Hugo, so he should be back soon. The phone rings and it's Hugo. Blackie pretends to be the bellboy. Hugo leaves a message for Marguerite that he will not be back until the next day. Marguerite invites Blackie to dine with her as Jonathan slowly wakes. Blackie leaves a message for Hugo saying, "Shorty's pal called and will call again." When Blackie gets off the elevator on the first floor, he is invited to lunch by a man named Bill Ritz, Art Smith. Ritz calls Blackie by his last name and knows every detail since he got on the bus.
Well, you come in on the 4 o'clock bus, sat up all the way from Washington, D.C. That was a cute little trick you pulled with your note for Frank Hugo to find his room number. You went up there and waited till he phoned he wasn't coming back till tomorrow.
The two men enter the hotel restaurant. Ritz tells Blackie that the Fiesta has filled up all of the rooms in town. Blackie deduces correctly that Ritz is an FBI agent. Ritz says he saw Blackie at Shorty's inquest in Washington, where Blackie testified that he didn't know who killed Shorty. He says that he is following Hugo, and Hugo is too tough for Blackie. Ritz says Blackie is all cussed up because he fought a war and didn't get anything for it.
You know, I wouldn't like it a minute if Mr. Hugo got you. Well, you're not a bad fella. Like the rest of the boys, all cussed up because you fought a war for 3 years and got nothing out of it but a dangle of ribbons. Why don't you let your Uncle Samuel take care of him?
Marguerite comes downstairs with Mr. Locke, Edward Earl. She introduces him to Blackie, who is still waiting in the lobby. Locke tries to get Blackie to deal with him, saying he can speak for Hugo. He turns down an invitation for drinks from the couple. The bellhop returns with no luck finding a room for Blackie. He tells Blackie to go to the Tres Valetas, and he may find an Indian or a Mexican that will rent him a place. The bellboy takes Blackie to the small cantina in the poorer part of town. Pila is waiting outside. Her two friends are inside with some boys. Pila tells Blackie that he will need her. When he enters, the music goes silent and every face in the joint turns to him. Blackie talks to the two non-shy girls who are willing to help, but the guy they are with stops him. Blackie orders a whiskey and is given tequila. He tries to pay with a 20 and the bartender has no change. The man from the carousel, Pancho, Thomas Gomez, comes forward to help. He eventually proposes that Blackie and his new friends drink on the 20 until the bartender can make change.
I will be your friend. I tell you what I'm going to do. He can change only 10, eh?
Yeah.
So, we drink 10, and everybody is happy, eh? You want to make everybody happy, see?
Yeah, sure. Let's make everybody happy.
Otra botella. Tequila para todos.
Oh, gracias.
Gordito como eres águila, hombre.
Mil gracias.
Make mine whiskey. I don't want to burn a hole in my neck.
Sí, señor. Sí, whiskey.
When he gets the drink, Pancho says Blackie is the blood of his heart.
Amigo, you are the blood of my heart. You are true friend.
Pancho explains that tomorrow at the festival, Zozobra, the god of bad luck, will be burned and everyone will start fresh. In spite of it all, Blackie doesn't end up shanked in the alley. He tells Pancho that he needs a place to stay, and Pancho says he will give him the best place in San Pablo. Pancho and Blackie start wobble walking to sleep, and Pila follows behind like a ghost. Pancho sees her and says she is too skinny. They get back to the carousel, which is named Tio Vivo, a Spanish word for merry-go-round. The place where they go to sleep is a simple lean-to next to Tio Vivo. Pancho takes a poncho to sleep under and lets Blackie sleep in the bed. Pila arrives just after Pancho falls asleep. Blackie asks Pila if she wants a ride. She says yes, and Blackie wakes Pancho to run the ride. Blackie tells her to ride the pink horse.
Did you ever ride on one of them before?
No.
Well, go on. Get going. Go on.
Which one?
Ride the pink one.
Pancho sees the doll Pila gave to Blackie and says it keeps death away. Blackie shows his 45 and says it's a better charm. Pila tells Blackie that someone is out in the dark. When the man walks into the light, it's Ritz. Ritz says he doesn't want Blackie to kill Hugo, but the way Blackie is acting, Hugo has sent two men to track him down. Pila watches over Blackie from one of the chariots on Tio Vivo. Pila brings water to Blackie while he is shaving in the morning. Although she is helping him, Blackie is still mean to her. He tells her she needs to comb her hair. He gives money to Pila for a new hairdo and some clothes. Blackie goes to the lobby of the hotel and Red, Harold Goodwin, follows him into the elevator. Blackie goes to Hugo's room and Jonathan answers. Hugo shouts to let him in. Hugo sends Jonathan and Red away. He asks Blackie what he wants. Hugo is deaf and has to wear a speaker to amplify sound. He first makes sure Blackie is not working for Ritz. Hugo says Shorty tried to blackmail him.
I'll lay it on the line, Kagan. Shorty took something from me and tried to sell it back. I don't like blackmailers, nor would you if you were in my business. They constitute a very bad industrial hazard.
Blackie and Shorty were in the same unit during World War II. Blackie says he has the evidence that Shorty had, and it's a canceled check for $100,000 drawn on a Mexican bank. The implication is that Hugo was bribing people to be a war profiteer. Hugo says it will take a few hours to get the blackmail money of $30,000. They agree to meet at a cafe at 7 p.m. Ritz finds Pila in the lobby. She has a swirled up permanent and a new shawl. Pila says she saw Blackie die, and that is why she is following him. Blackie comes down, and Ritz tries to talk to him. Ritz now realizes that Blackie doesn't want to kill Hugo and that he is a blackmailer. Blackie does not like the hairdo on Pila, but he takes her to lunch anyway. Blackie orders 2 fruit cocktails, 2 trout with au gratin potatoes, and 2 salads with Thousand Island dressing. He's still being mean to Pila.
You know, it's kind of funny. For a minute, I thought I was back in New Guinea again. Only in New Guinea, they're darker.
Who is?
Girls.
You like them darker? If you're going to laugh at me, I'll go away.
Nobody's laughing at you. What a goon.
Marjorie comes down and asks to talk. Blackie sends Pila to another table. Marjorie says Hugo holds onto her because he never gives her cash. She says she can manage the deal and get him twice the money and get her some money to escape. She wants Blackie to use a lawyer to hold the check. He refuses and shuts her down hard. This movie makes interesting use of a femme fatale. A femme fatale brings disaster to a man that becomes involved with her. He refuses to become involved with Marjorie and recognizes her for what she is. He later told Pila that Marjorie has a dead fish where her heart ought to be. They are dead fish with a lot of perfume on, and if you touch them, you'll get stung and always lose.
She make you feel bad? I guess you're not used to her kind of ladies, huh?
She's very beautiful.
Yeah, they usually are.
She has very nice clothes and diamonds.
Diamonds. And a dead fish where her heart ought to be. I know a lot of them babies.
She's not a baby.
Babies is what you call dames. Do you understand that?
No.
You understand what a human being is?
Yes?
Well, they're not human beings. They're dead fish with a lot of perfume on them. You touch them and you always get stung. You always lose.
Sounds about right. After lunch, Blackie goes out alone and the fiesta is in full swing. He goes to the bus station and uses the hidden key to retrieve the check. After dark, they bring the long-armed statue of Zozobra through the streets of the town for it to be burned in the plaza. Blackie wades through the throngs of people and makes it to the cafe. Hugo is dining with Marguerite, Locke, Jonathan, and some others. Blackie goes straight to the table. Hugo says the money is on the way. He tells Blackie to wait at the bar, but Marguerite invites Blackie to dance. Marguerite sneaks Blackie off the dance floor and tells him that Hugo is not going to pay and is tricking him. They slip out a side door and Marjorie tells him that there is someone else coming. 2 men jump Blackie with a blackjack and a knife. Marjorie watches with delight as Blackie is taken down. When she steps inside, Ritz is there asking about Blackie. She delays him a bit, but outside he finds the 2 men on the ground. Ritz tells Hugo that he should never send knife fighters against Blackie. The cops come and confirm 1 man dead and the other wounded.
Broke this baby's arm. This one looks a little dead.
Couldn't be deader.
The police search the parking lot for Blackie. Pila finds the wounded Blackie and saves him using part of her dress to stop the bleeding. They go and find Pancho. Pancho leaves Tio Vivo and helps Blackie as the children watch.
What kind of hurt? Knife. Where?
In the back.
Oh, knife is good. It's more easy to fix. I got knife 3 times. When you're young, everybody sticks knife in you.
Pancho gives him a drink and examines the wound. Pila's bandage is good. Blackie has lost his gun during the fight and escape. Pancho sees 2 more men looking for Blackie. They hide Blackie in one of Tio Vivo's chariots. Pila covers him with her skirt and a blanket. The two tough guys beat the crap out of Pancho as the children on Tio Vivo watch. Pancho takes the beating and refuses to betray his friend. With a final kick, they leave. Blackie says he will give Pancho $5,000 for his friendship. Pila wants to take Blackie to her town, but they have to wait 1.5 hours for the bus. Pancho says for them to go to the Tres Valetas to wait. They all hear the burning of Zozobra, and Pancho thinks it means good luck. Pila says the wounded man is a friend of Pancho's and the bartender helps. Pila and the wounded Blackie take a table in the back. Blackie takes the check and tells Pila to hide it in her shirt. Marjorie and Red show up at the bar. Red slowly approaches the passed out Blackie, and Pila creams him with a bottle. Marjorie sees Red on the floor, but Pila and Blackie make it out the back way. They cut through the side streets until they reach the bus station. Pila loads Blackie onto the bus and goes to buy tickets. The ticket seller is at the fiesta and Pila goes to look for him. Blackie wakes up in a feverish haze. Back at the hotel, Hugo is playing cards while Jonathan waits on him. Pila comes back to the bus and finds that Blackie has headed to the hotel. Blackie makes it to the hotel and heads up to Hugo's room. Pila is a little behind him. She catches up with him just outside Hugo's suite. A thug, John Duchette, with a gun and another thug are now in the room. Blackie is so far gone that he doesn't recognize Hugo. Hugo has the wounded Blackie ready to give the check to him, but Blackie can't remember where the canceled check is located. The thugs try to beat the information out of Blackie. The second thug begins slapping Pila. Suddenly, Ritz comes in with his gun drawn. He searches everyone for weapons and slaps the speaker away from Hugo. Ritz gets Blackie up and they start heading to the door. Hugo chews on Blackie for not asking for more money and being a chump. Blackie asks Pila for the check. He hands it over to Ritz. Blackie and Ritz have a final breakfast together. Blackie is worried about Pila, but he denies it. He says Pancho will understand about not getting the $5,000 as a reward.
It ain't the $5,000 you promised Pancho, is it?
No, he never expected to get that anyway.
Is it the kid?
What kid?
A little mouse with the big eyes. You wouldn't be fretting about her now, would you?
Why should I worry about her? All I gotta do is just say goodbye and that's the end of it.
Blackie and Ritz go to Tio Vivo to say goodbye. Pancho is happy to see Blackie. Pancho says he was born to be poor and is not worried about the money. Pila comes around the church and walks directly to Blackie. She stands like a stone as he returns the good luck statue. Blackie is talking a lot and finally Pila says, "Goodbye, Senor." He cheek kisses her and she leaves. Her friends and the other children come around and Pila tells the story of her time with Blackie. She is now the hero of the story and no longer a social outcast.
Me preguntó, which way to the La Fonda Hotel? Le dije, I will show you the hotel. Al día siguiente me dio dinero y me fui a peinar de otro modo para ver si así le gustaba más. Pero eran malos. También el hombre que vino a la cantina. Pero a él le pegué en la cabeza con una botella. Así!
She takes one sad look at Blackie as he leaves and then returns to her newfound fame. I'll be back with conclusions and the world-famous short summary following a word from our sponsors. Summary. I made my first visit to Santa Fe last year, and like all true romantics, I fell in love with the town. Some of this movie was set in the La Fonda Hotel, which was built in the Pueblo Revival style in 1920. It is great to see, and they have a bar on the roof. The story is set around a fiesta that takes place in early September each year. The celebration fills the town with tourists, Native Americans, Mexican Americans, and others. But what they're celebrating is very odd. In 1640, the local Indians killed about 400 Spaniards and drove another 2,000 out of what the Spanish called the province of Santa Fe de Nuevo Mexico in what was called the Pueblo Revolt. In 1692, the Spanish returned to the town of Santa Fe and were unopposed. The city began having the yearly fiesta in 1712 to celebrate the retaking of the city from the Indians. The burning of Zozobra started in 1924. World famous short summary. Man finds two terrific friends in a small town. I hope you enjoyed today's show. You can find connections to social media and email on the site at classicmovierev.com or in the podcast show notes. If you enjoyed this show, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you've already subscribed, you can tell a friend, colleague, or family member about the show, or leave a review at Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show get found. If you want to comment, suggest a movie, or help out, contact me by email at jec@classicmovierev.com. Beware the Moors,